So now you know this podcast about is about. I think it's only fair to talk about who's behind the microphone. My name's Colton, 28 years old. I'm a firefighter and I drive a tow truck. And like a lot of people listening today, I'm still trying to figure out life. People sometimes hear those jobs and they think they know who I am. They picture the uniform, the lights, the calls, the adrenaline. And don't get me wrong, I'm incredibly proud of what I do. I've had the privilege of helping people on some of the worst days of their lives. I've learned what teamwork really looks like. I've seen strangers risk everything to help someone they never met. Those moments have changed. They've changed me. But those jobs, they're what I do. They're not everything that I am. Behind the uniform, I'm just a guy who's made mistakes, a guy who's loved people deeply, a guy who's had his heart broken, a guy who's questioned himself, a guy who's had to learn that sometimes life doesn't go the way you planned. And maybe that's why you're listening today. Because maybe you've had those moments too. One thing is, this job has taught me that life can change in an instant. One phone call, one decision, one unexpected moment. You realize pretty quickly that tomorrow isn't guaranteed. That lesson doesn't make me live in fear. It makes me appreciate the people I love a little more. It reminds me not to take ordinary days for granted because ordinary days become extraordinary once they're gone. I've also learned that some of the hardest battles people fight are the ones nobody else can see. I've met people who smiled through unimaginable pain. I've met people who looked like they had everything together, but inside, they were exhausted. That changed the way I look at people. Now I try to remember that everybody is carrying something, and maybe that's true for you too. Maybe nobody around you knows what you're carrying. If that's the case, I hope this podcast becomes a place where you don't feel quite so alone. I want to tell you something that's not always easy to admit. There have been seasons of my life where I questioned my own worth, where relationships ended, and I wondered what I could have done differently, where I replayed conversations in my head, where I blamed myself for things I couldn't change. Those seasons were painful, but they also forced me to grow. They taught me that my value couldn't couldn't justify whether somebody stayed or left. The healing takes time. That became a better man. It isn't about pretending you're never hurt. It's about choosing who you become. Because of the hurt, that's really what Through the Fire is about. It's not pretending we've got life figured out, not acting like every day is easy, but choosing to keep moving, choosing to keep learning, and choosing to become stronger instead of more bitter at this point. And as this podcast grows, you're going to hear stories from my life, lessons I've learned, mistakes I've made, people who've inspired me. And I hope that it does the same for you. Because even though our lives are different, I think our struggles are more alike than you realize. So if you're here, whether this is your first episode or someday you're binge listening years from now, welcome. I'm grateful you're here. And I'm grateful we get to take this journey together. Because I truly believe none of us were meant to walk through the fire alone. Now, let me tell you why this podcast had to exist.